Hey guys, this is kind of a two-part video in a way. I filmed some of my story and everything one day, and it was actually yesterday, and then things got crazy. Life, baby, dinner, everything kind of got in the way and I had to stop, so I'm finishing everything right now. So you're gonna see me in two different outfits, different hairstyles, whatnot, just so you're aware. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I have a lot of laundry going, so if you hear anything, that's what it is. Hopefully it's not too loud. And also the baby is in his saucer with his lights and music playing. So around here you can't really film quietly. It's always something going on. So as you guys know, if you watched my first video, I touched base on the condition that my daughter has. She suffers from food allergies as well as a disease called Eosinophilic Esophagitis. So today I want to talk about that because for future videos, if I refer to her or any of her allergies or her disease or anything, I'd like it if you guys knew what was going on and what I was talking about. So I will start off with eosinophilic esophagitis. That is, it's also known as EOE. It is a disease where white blood cells show up in the esophagus and the intestines and the stomach and the small bowel. Not always all in those parts. It can be called different things depending where it is. She has it pretty much from here down to her tummy. So it's when the eosinophils, white blood cells, show up in your esophagus, but they really shouldn't be there, and they attack your insides. So her esophagus is inflamed, it tightens, the tube is very small compared to what it should be, so that causes like choking, obviously pain, vomiting, and just all sorts of terrible, bad things that are no fun for anybody, her or us. So I'll kind of rewind, start from the very beginning when she was born. She's obviously our second baby. She was a C-section. Not that I think that necessarily has anything to do with it, but I never breastfed her. I started her on formula, and just a few days later, she kind of had this like weird rash on her face and her like top and her torso, her face. Of course, baby acne, it's like confusing. Is this baby acne? Is this a rash? So it kind of wouldn't go away. I was using sensitive things for her, lotion, no soap, nothing crazy, no crazy laundry detergent. So eventually we obviously had to go to the doctor. Long story short, we tried, well, not really long story short, I'm going to tell you the long story. So we switched from Gerber Good Start to Gerber Soy, Gerber Good Start Soy. And like after a few bottles of that, she got a million times worse. So that obviously showed she obviously had an intolerance to soy as well. We took her off the soy and we went to the gentle, which is like for colicky, fussy babies. That didn't do anything either. Her pediatrician thought, something is not right, something's going on. Obviously, she, could be allergic to like cow's milk. We'll try Nutramigen. Literally gave her one bottle of Nutramigen and she was like a new baby. Rash gone, happy, not fussy anymore. So that was that. And we were all happy. As she got older, she also had acid reflux, so she got put on ranitidine for that as well. And it wasn't as terrible as it could have been. I know people deal with like acid reflux. It's just insane. We had to like hold her or like prop her up for a half hour after eating, all that good stuff, and it wasn't bad. I eventually wanted to like get her off the ranitidine because you don't want yourself to necessarily be on an antibiotic or a medication if you don't have to be, let alone your baby. So I kind of weaned her off of that and she did really good. But as a baby, Lila was just sad, fussy, unhappy all the time. Not all the time, sorry. She would have these bouts of unhappiness, almost like colic, but it wasn't. She would cry for like an hour on end, and I literally just did not know what to do for her. It was so sad. I mean, there was times where I was crying. I couldn't soothe her. You know, I would try baths, I would try feeding her again, you know, like I didn't know if she was tired. I swing, bouncy seat, swaddle her, rock her, anything, and everything just did not work. And then like finally all of a sudden she would just be done. It was the weirdest thing. So obviously she probably, now looking back, probably had like a terrible tummy ache or something. I don't even know, to be honest. So we had to wait till she was 6 months to start any foods with her, because obviously when they have tummy issues and formula issues, feeding issues, the longer the wait, the better. And now they recommend 6 months anyway, which we were fine with. Hi! He wants to talk too. So once we did get to that time to start feeding this, so now this was almost 5 years ago, so that time was like, you know, rice cereal was, you know, really popular, and like so rice cereal actually contains milk and soy, dairy and soy, so that was out of the question. So we actually gave her like the baby oatmeal. She did good with that. We started introducing baby foods. She did well. She did have a few issues with some of the fruits and some of the vegetables. Like she would get terrible diaper rash, so we just shied away from those, thinking her tummy is just too sensitive, you know, so we just left it. I mean, there was one she could have and she was fine, and she was like, seemed to be doing okay. So we probably really got her like eating baby food at like 7-8 months probably. So I mean, and by then my first Talon was eating like anything table food, like he was a monster. So come time to introduce table foods. Now I know the baby-led weaning is really popular, which is what we're gonna do with our last baby, our son Oakley. That wasn't really a thing back then, or if it was, we didn't know about it. It wasn't like popular around this area. He, you know, started out with like, you know, those first foods, soft foods, like mashed potatoes, macaroni noodles, you know, vegetables smashed up, like whatever, all that stuff. I remember like giving her this baby yogurt, and like a couple hours later she threw up, and I was like, weird. Then she like threw up again. I was like, I worked at a daycare at the time, and me and my cousin actually worked together in the baby room that she was in. And I was like, okay, is she getting the flu? Like, this is so weird, you know? So come to find out, she would get sick and throw up like during her mealtime, and we noticed it was when we were giving her things with dairy in it. So obviously something with dairy products were bugging her tummy. So a little after she turned 1, we got the referral to go down to Children's Hospital in Milwaukee and get allergy testing done. So we went down there. She was just a little peanut. I can find a picture and put in here probably. It was so sad. I don't know. To put your baby practically, you know, through that is just, it's not fun. And if I had any idea what was coming, I would have slapped myself across the face, because that was nothing compared to what she's endured. So we went down to Children's, and she got tested for the top 8 allergens, which is dairy, wheat, soy, egg, peanut, tree nut, fish, shellfish. Top 8. People also refer to that as top 6 sometimes if you just categorize fish and shellfish together and nuts and peanuts together. So she tested negative to everything. And the allergist we saw at that time, I didn't really care for. He didn't have like that nice bedside manner. He didn't really like seem to sit down much and listen to our story. It was like he was there to get the allergy testing done and like get us out of there in a way. So it felt really just crummy as a parent. So he told us to go home and give her milk. Start, you know, not a big deal. She's not allergic, give her milk. And I knew better. My mommy told me, like, something is not right, Kylie. Keep doing what you're doing. You know, at that point we were keeping her off of dairy because we knew it was bugging her, you know. And when I do say keeping her off dairy, I say we didn't give her like regular milk. We did not give her yogurt. We didn't really give her mac and cheese or like a slice of cheese or anything like that. But she could have like baked milk. So like Cheez-It, crackers, goldfish, those never seemed to bother her. So for a while there, we just stuck to no dairy or, you know, none of that like real milk products, stuff like that. And that was fine. That was not a big deal. The more and more we introduced her foods to her, the older she got, she just kept throwing up. She would throw up in the morning, in the nighttime, during mealtime, after mealtime, before mealtime. There was literally no pattern. She would eat chicken nuggets and she would be fine. 2 days later, she would eat chicken nuggets and she would throw them up. We would go to restaurants and she would be fine and, you know, eat whatever, mow on this, mow on that. And we would go to restaurants other times and she would throw up. It was just completely crazy. I kept taking her back to the doctor, kept going. And, you know, this is not right. Something is not right. You don't throw up all the time. That's not normal. Like, she doesn't have like an ongoing flu for a year, you know, like something is going on. We got referred to a pediatric allergist in the Fox Valley in Neenah. Her allergist is absolutely wonderful. He's not affiliated with Children's Hospital, but I love him so much. He's great. So we did more testing. At that time, things finally came back positive. She definitely had a dairy allergy. And a few other things like wheat, soy came back, I believe, as an allergy. A handful of things. And he actually said, I think that there's this new disease that we are learning about. So this was still such a new disease to doctors and patients and people. That there was very little known about it. But he said, I think, you know, from your experience and all of her symptoms and her allergies and everything, I think she has what's called eosinophilic esophagitis. He explained it to me and he told me the only way to find out if she has this is if she goes under and has, my baby is so sad, she goes under and anesthesia and gets an endoscopy where they, you know, stick the camera down, take pictures and biopsies. Okay. So at this point she's 2. Thinking about that, I mean, brought a million emotions. Like, I absolutely wanted to know if she had this. I was at my wit's end with all of this. I mean, me and my husband, we both were. I mean, it was just crazy. And just like, I mean, I didn't want her to have surgery. I mean, some people could say surgery, some people say procedure. I mean, nobody wants your child to go under anesthesia and have that done. You know, it's wild. You never dream of, when you think about starting a family and you have kids, you never think that any of this is a possibility. So, long story short, we did it. We needed to know. We saw a GI down at Children's. He was wonderful. We loved him so much. So in July 2015, she had her first scope, and sure enough, she had eosinophilic esophagitis. So then once it was confirmed, that brought on a whole nother ball of, you know, emotions and just. So once the diagnosis was confirmed, we were told that there was 2 ways to treat this. Number 1 being swallowed steroids, which we immediately were like, 2-year-old on steroids? What? You know, or treat it with a special diet. Basically, diet elimination. Remove all of the allergens from her diet that are bothering her. But you don't really know if they're bothering her or not. What comes back positive on skin testing may not be affecting her insides, and something that comes back negative on skin testing may be affecting her insides. So it was super tricky. So first thing we had to do was start her on steroids for 3 months to see if her body even responded to them. We knew we wanted to treat this with her diet because we were thinking, we'll take out 100% dairy and, you know, she'll probably be fine. And her doctor said, and I mean, not only her doctor, it's proven 75% of patients with EOE, dairy is their #1 trigger. So we started her on the steroids 3 months, went back 3 months later down to Children's to have another endoscopy, and she scoped what we call clean, meaning no eosinophils. Her throat looked so much better, no inflammation. The tightening compared to like they give you pictures each time. Her first set of pictures were just awful. Her esophagus actually was shaped like a flower. It was so like furrowed and just tight. That's why she was like choking and gagging and coughing all the time. I mean, her esophagus was like beautiful. I mean, it's gross to look at and it looks so different and funny, but she looked awesome. So we were like, okay, well, we know that steroids, you know, can fix this if this is something we ever need to do or decide to do later on. I'm not gonna go through every single scope because now she has had 12 scopes total in the last almost 2.5 years. So basically we started removing allergens. We struggled so bad. And when they take biopsies, when they call you with results, they give you a number for the top and the bottom of the esophagus. So it's like eosinophils per, you know, high field is what they call it. So her numbers were just all over the place. Her next scope, when I think we just removed dairy, terrible again. Then we would like remove a few other things and it looked a little better, but then we would remove even more then because the numbers just still weren't great. And then they would be, you know, even worse or sometimes a little better, and it was just up and down and a roller coaster all the time. It was just crazy. There is one way besides steroids to get a clean scope, and that is it's what we EOE parents and doctors number one call going elemental. And that means she went on an elemental diet, and that is she was fed formula only, elemental formula only for, it was supposed to be for 8 weeks, but I think it actually ended up being 10 or 12 weeks by the time it was all said and done. So we went elemental just before Halloween in 2016, so about a year ago. And from, I believe it was like the beginning of October to October 30th or October 31st, we had an appointment. And she had lost almost 4 pounds. We couldn't get her to drink as much formula as she needed. She needed like 40 ounces of formula a day. And I mean, that stuff is very filling. And, you know, when you don't feel good and you don't want to drink, it was hard to get her to drink it. It doesn't taste the best. She tolerated it. She said she enjoyed it. But I mean, the smell of it even, it was flavored tropical, so I mean, it was much better than, you know, what we could have been given. But, so she lost a lot of weight, and her doctor said, you know, this isn't good, obviously, you know, we need to do something. You're gonna either need to start steroids or we have to do a feeding tube. And we were so close. We felt like we were so close. We were so close to getting this clean scope. She was gonna have like a scope in November sometime I believe it was. or maybe December, beginning of December. And we just thought, you know, we can't give up now. We have to try to get a clean scope. If we can get a clean scope, what you can do from there is start reintroducing foods one by one, and you know, you get those foods back into your diet that are safe for you, and you end up having safe foods, and that's all we wanted. We were just clinging to that. So we went down to Children's again, and she got an NG tube placed in her nose. So up through her nose to the back of her throat, down into her stomach. I was thinking the insertion of the NG tube would like not be a big deal at all. I was a part of a lot of Facebook groups with other families and parents dealing with kids that had EOE, and I had seen numerous with NG tubes, G tubes, and it all just seemed like no big deal. And I know everyone said going elemental was like the best decision they ever made. So we went down there, the tube was inserted, and it hurt her so bad, and it made me so sad. You never want to see your kid go through that pain, but she was going through so much pain, not being able to eat anything, that I just thought, you know, this was the right thing to do for her. We had to do this so we could, you know, get to the end, you know, the bigger picture, the happy ending. It was HELL during the insertion, and maybe for a half an hour after, but afterwards she did awesome. She did so good, and she never complained once for being a little 3-year-old girl who had gone through all of this. We took all of her food away. How do you tell your kid you cannot eat anymore? So they taught me how to, the tube was in, they taught me how to use it. We got a feeding pump, we got formula supplied, we got extra NG tubes, we got syringes, we got gauze, we got tape, we got all this stuff. We got, what do they call it? The dermatape or whatever. Now I can't remember what it's called because we don't use it any longer. So we stayed overnight at Children's. She had to be, you know, monitored on her feeds for a while, make sure she tolerated them. I had to learn to use all the equipment. I had no idea what I was dealing with. So she did good. We were able to get, you know, what she needed. Our life then revolved around feedings. It was like having a baby again. We had to give her 40 ounces a day, so that was broken up into 4 10-ounce feedings. And by the time you got everything ready and set the pump up and fed and got everything cleaned up and everything like that, each feed was about an hour and a half. So it was like you got done with one and it seemed like an hour later you had to do another one. And I'm not complaining, but man, it was a rough time. It sucked, and it just wasn't fun for anyone. Us, just wasn't fun. So she had her scope in December 6th of 2016, and that is when her doctor decided she was gonna, instead of the NG tube, we would place a G tube in her tummy. And that was kind of like, holy crap too, but we had so many crummy times with the NG tube. So she had a scope then and a G tube placement as well. We stayed overnight at Children's again. She had to be monitored to make sure she tolerated the feeds going right into her belly. You know, that was different. And then I had to learn how to use a G tube then. The baby is joining because he's just not happy about anything. So I had to learn to use the G tube then, and that, like I said, that was a whole nother ball game. The G tube just went right into her tummy. So then, before the NG tube, it was a tube itself. So you just stuck the little IV bag right in, you know, the feeding bag right in there. It connected perfectly. Syringes fat. Syringes fit right inside, perfect. It was pretty easy for the most part. G-tube, you had extensions, and you had bolus extensions, bolus feed, or you can feed with the pump, and just, you had bolus feeds with the NG tube as well. We just never did them or anything. So just lots more learning. So we finally had that clean scope, so we started introducing foods. I feel like I could just make like 5 million videos about all this. Long story short, we did a few food trials. Turns out chicken and apples are Lila's safe foods that we know of right now. We did a few more trials. We did potato, like white potato and quinoa, and she ended up failing that. You know, before we trialed those, her scope was clean. Her numbers were almost to 0. And after trialing those for about 8 weeks, her numbers went back up again. It was just so discouraging. It's just like chicken and apples. Chicken and apples. Like, that's all she ate, and she didn't care. She was happy. She loved it. Applesauce, apple juice, apples, chicken. Just not fun. So Lila had 2 safe foods, as we knew, chicken and apples. And after that, we did more food trials, like I said. And after failing potatoes and quinoa, her doctor decided it would be best if we did kind of a handful of foods. And she thought it was very weird that she did fail potatoes and quinoa, because those are like really, really, really low on the totem pole of what foods to introduce. They kind of have different categories of what foods to introduce first. Like some fruits and some vegetables are the lowest. Those are the things that you should start with, and you kind of work your way up there. And like the last things you should ever do pretty much are like the top 8 allergens. So she said, let's try a handful. I mean, if we keep just doing 1 or 2 foods at a time, you're never gonna get enough food back in her diet, you know, in a good time frame. It's gonna take years. You know, if you have one food for 8 weeks and you have to scope, and then you move to another one, and sometimes if you fail that one food, you know, that whole 8 weeks was a waste. You have to throw that food away. So we decided to introduce, so she was eating chicken and apples, which were safe, we knew that, and then we introduced grapes, raisins, beets, watermelon, and cantaloupe. So those 5 foods, and she thought these are all very low, she shouldn't have an issue. If we got those back, awesome. We did those for about 8 weeks, scoped, and sure enough, her numbers were back up again. And at that point, her last scope, just her last scope in September, it was extremely hard to get her down to children's. The past, I would say, 6 or 8 scopes, she wakes up that morning knowing that she has to have her scope, and she's so upset. She cries and she doesn't want to go, and Mom, please don't make me do it, please don't make me do it. And it's just like completely heartbreaking. And this last one, she was just a mess, and she actually got like angry and violent with us, which I don't blame her. I wasn't mad at her for it or anything. She we eventually got out the door, got in the truck, and on the way she cried for an hour, and that's almost the whole way there. She did not stop crying until we were almost there. Once we were there, she was fine. They give you Versed, which is, they refer to it as silly juice, so it kind of relaxes her, and when they come to take her, she's not necessarily out of it, but feeling a little goofy, so she's not upset about it. And we give that to her through her tube, and once we were at the hospital and checked in and everything, she did great. I mean, once we're there, she does well, and she looks forward to being able to eat afterward and have a popsicle, and all that good stuff. And so after surgery, the doctor always comes in. So you go into like a little conference room, and she talks about what she sees visually. They always take biopsies, and the tricky thing with Lila is sometimes her pictures would look really, really great, but then when we got biopsies back, it still showed eosinophils. And sometimes there had been a couple times where pictures didn't look so good, but the eosinophil count was pretty low. So it was just so confusing. She was pretty much asymptomatic after like the third or fourth scope, so she wasn't having symptoms anymore, no throwing up, which was great for us, but very confusing because we always went to the hospital thinking, oh my god, this is it, we're gonna have good results, and it just wasn't. So that last scope, when we sat down to talk, she said, things don't look 100%, but things don't look terrible either, but we always have to wait for biopsies. She said, I will call you as soon as I can. But at this point, if things don't look good, and we also, at her last appointment, we had talked, we were kind of ready to just, I don't want to say throw in the towel because we weren't giving up, but we were done doing this. I mean, to put her through this every 8 weeks, not having many foods. I mean, this summer it was really, really hard to not have many foods. I mean, when you're out and about and parties and weddings and just like all this stuff, it gets really tough. And I kind of said me and my husband are just ready to probably put her on steroids if things don't look good. We're ready to get her to eat some food, and she wants to eat. And so it was just kind of a waiting game then. She said, I'll the biopsies usually took 10 to 14 days, they say, but she said, I'll do them, we'll send them right away, and I will call you as soon as I, get them back. And just a couple days later, sure enough, she failed again. We just said, let's start the steroid, let's get some more foods back into her diet, and that was that. So about the end of September, just a few weeks later, we started her on the steroid. We still had to be extremely careful about what we started to give her because she hadn't had so many foods in so long. We had no idea how she was going to react. We didn't know necessarily what she could and couldn't have. Things that didn't bother her before maybe were going to bother her now. So it was just all super confusing, and just we were so ready to jump into it and start a lot of foods because we were excited and she was ready and excited, but that wasn't something we could just do. She was going to have to definitely go and have some food challenges done, which is, eating food at an allergist office to make sure she had no anaphylactic reactions or any, symptoms of an allergic reaction. And so her doctor gave us a list of foods that she wanted to have us introduce first. So there was a few that we could just start on our own at home very cautiously, and then we have quite a list that we're going to have to do at the allergist office. So the first one she wanted us to do was the soy challenge. The soy challenge is another video. I actually made a video while we did the soy challenge and stuff, so look forward to that after we post this video. That should be coming soon. But yeah, I hope this all wasn't so super confusing. She is thriving. She's doing awesome. She loves to eat, which is great. She's so excited to try some new foods. So we were able to start oats, which gives us, oats for oatmeal, Cheerios, Lucky Charms, out of all things. Those are made with oats and, corn syrup for the sugar, marshmallows. And so she was able to have very few little extra ingredients and stuff. We still have to be careful. We're not gonna give her a granola bar with all these different ingredients and everything. And so she was able to start corn. So corn tortilla chips, corn tortillas, which she loves, corn on the cob, which is awesome. She loves corn, which is so good. She's willing and so ready to eat, so this is exciting that slowly but surely, she's gonna get lots and lots of foods back. how does it make you feel to have eosinophilic esophagitis?
Not good.
Not good? How come?
Because I only have chicken apples.
Chicken and apples are your only safes?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not very fun, right? So, if there's something you wanted to tell somebody about eosinophilic esophagitis, what would you tell them?
Well, chicken was not very good because Mom makes it kind of yucky.
Because you could only have it plain, so it wasn't very good, right? Not many flavors?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if someone was going through this, like you were, what would you tell them? Do you have, like, something nice you could tell them about what they could do to make it better?
Well, things will get better.
Things will get better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And things could always be worse, right? Like something very bad could happen, and at least you can walk and talk and play, right? That's always good.
Or if you don't, you have to sit in the chair all day.
Yeah. So what food are you most excited to try? When we get to start.
Cereal and milk.
When you get to have some cereals already, right? So
Yeah, just
coming up, if there's anything you wanted to try, what would it be?
graham crackers
Graham crackers? That sounds yummy.
with marshmallows and chocolate on them.
A s'more?
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds yummy. Okay, guys, so that's that. I hope you guys understand what EOE is and all her food allergies, and thank you for watching. Like my video and make sure you subscribe to our page. And the cute baby.
Yeah.
Get to see the cute baby. And stay tuned for future videos about Lila's food challenges. Bye, guys.
Wait, no. And if you like them, click on them on YouTube. Bye.